Well, good afternoon and welcome. This is, today is, oh my goodness, it's a new month. The tradition in Greek is to say kalomina, which means good month. This is November 1st, 2023. We are gathered for an afternoon work session. Our topic, our focus will be on to receive an update on our 2019-2023 strategic plan. We have various folks assembled. My name is John Kafalis, Commissioner, Chair Pro Tem. I'm joined by my colleague, my good colleague, Commissioner Kristen Stevens, and my other good colleague is excused. Of course, we also have our county manager, and I think we'll turn it over to her to perhaps offer some opening remarks, and then we'll turn it over to our folks.
So this is a bit of a celebration report. This is the last status report you will get on the current strategic plan. The next time we talk about this plan, we'll be celebrating the accomplishments with the teams. And so I'll turn it over to Josh, who I think is going to get us started with the agenda, and then let some of the goal stewards report their work.
All right, indeed, Lorinda, thank you. I'm Josh Fudge. I'm the county's Director of Performance, Budget, and Strategy. As Lorinda mentioned, this will be the last work session on this strategic plan. As always, we'll go in order, and because it's the last plan, we're actually basically going to skip Goal 3, although it is on the presentation, because that goal has been completed. The objectives have been completed as we reported at the last quarterly work session. So with that, I will turn it over to Goal 1, which is adequate public infrastructure. And to walk through that will be the goal steward, Assistant County Manager, Lori Cadrich.
Thank you, Josh. Good afternoon, Commissioners. As Josh mentioned, ours goal was on adequate public infrastructure, and the purpose for that was that our region was growing, and the community felt the stress of that growth. And so 5 years ago, when this strategic goal was put together, the focus was on ensuring that there's adequate public infrastructure to meet those growth demands. The first one was on regional transportation. And just by way of reminder to the community, the county convened all 8 municipalities to look at funding for meeting the resources regionally on this important goal. What occurred was that the ballot measure was not successful. A sales tax was sought to try and build out the infrastructure, particularly the infrastructure between communities, to deal with the increase in commuter traffic between our communities. When that failed, the county convened another go at visiting with all of the municipalities to see if there was interest in advancing something. The county wasn't set on being the lead for advancing some other efforts. And what we learned through that process was that the other municipalities had higher needs within their communities, and so transportation was no longer at the top of their list like it was 5 years ago. And so what we've tried to do with this one is operationalize those things that we can. So work with our municipal partners on shared projects in between communities when grant dollars are available, and then begin to look and evaluate whether there is funding available to meet the unincorporated needs, rather than trying to meet everyone's needs. And so you'll see in the new strategic plan an objective related to that. Otherwise, this goal or objective has been closed. The objective for number 2 is the Solid Waste Infrastructure Master Plan. And both of you sat on the Policy Council for that objective as well. As you're aware, the original goal was to complete the Tier 1 projects. What we've learned over the last 5 years is that it's not possible to complete the Tier 1 projects as we originally imagined. There's a variety of reasons for that, not the least of which is the cost associated with those projects have really escalated since the plan was first put together, and there still are not sufficient end markets for some of the Tier 1 projects to pay for the cost of operating those projects. That doesn't mean that there isn't work being done and that there aren't other ways to achieve our diversion goals that were set at that time. And so this objective has also been operationalized, and you'll hear a lot more about it in the upcoming year in terms of how we can create diversion projects within the county and still meet these goals, even though the methods may be different than what we imagined 5 years ago. Objective 3 is subdivision streets. I had that marked as closed. I know we had a work session on it this week. The reason I had it marked as closed is because the board had made a policy decision earlier this year that we would continue with offering public improvement districts or other methods to help subdivisions get these repairs made, and that the board was not interested in taking on the financial responsibility for the goal. And so what we're doing now is looking at various ways that we could help subdivisions improve their roads or maintain their roads. And so as far as I was concerned, this is operational. At the work session this week, there was some discussion about maybe having it on the next strategic plan. So if that's the desire of the board, if you could let us know, we would certainly do that.
So we have recommended that it be operationalized because this is a long-term, ongoing thing. The problem has been identified, solutions have been worked a little bit. You all have asked for more information. So we will not stop work because it's not included in the next strategic plan. We will continue to evaluate the problem, knowing that it's an issue. But we were not going to give it a new life as a new issue that we needed to focus new attention on.
And I appreciate that. I'd just like to offer a comment, and that is that I recognize it's a very complex issue, and we've been looking at what might work in the long term, and we're continuing to investigate, analyze. I'm wondering if we could consider giving more attention to what we might do with some short-term needs, because we're still getting, I don't know what the answers are there either, and Lori knows what I'm talking about. But I'm a little bit concerned that it's just hard to tell people, well, sorry, good luck, you're on your own. And I get that, but I'd like to not totally ignore that and see, and maybe we've exhausted any short-term ways of helping immediate needs. Thank you.
And then objective 3.2 was expanding broadband services in the unincorporated areas. And this objective as well is complete and operational. And significant progress has been made in this objective. I would imagine when it was put on the list 5 years ago, no one imagined the progress that would have been made on this objective today. And big kudos to Mark Pfaffinger for the partnerships that he has built and led with our municipal providers, because significant infrastructure has already been developed in the unincorporated areas that were underserved. And currently, there are over $3 million worth of grant applications at the state level to address other needs in the unincorporated areas. So, again, great work done on this objective. Objective 3, long-term water and wastewater treatment infrastructure. As you can see, Leslie Ellis is seated behind me, and she is leading the efforts on the water planning objective. Progress has been made already in completing one study that built the basis for our current conditions. An existing conditions report was developed, and that led to a long-term effort to develop a master plan for the unincorporated areas. That's in progress this week. In fact, I think our first public meeting is this week yet. The wastewater objective we closed, and we closed it not taking any action on it. As we had evaluated the impact of developing a wastewater master plan, similar to what we're doing for water, we realized that the impact that the county could have with wastewater was very different than what we can have for water. And so we recommended to the board not to take any further action there. And then objective number 4 was the regional watershed management efforts. And as you know, we've developed mitigation efforts to further reduce flood hazards by installing additional warning systems. Recently, we've brought back to you the intergovernmental agreements between us and 4 other agencies related to the Box Elder B dams, and those will be coming before you for approval. And so that is the status of all of our objectives, and we feel good about the work. I feel good about the work that's been done on this overall.
Yes, Commissioner Stevens.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Lori, and I know Commissioner Shattuck McNally's not here, but wanted to thank her for her work in helping steward this. One of the things I wanted to say about regional transportation is, while it's closed and we didn't find any, solutions with regard to a funding source, a dedicated funding source for this, and there is a lot of work in this space being done at the MPO level. And so just wanted to, remind folks that we found funding for all the segments of I-25, and so those will all be built out to a third lane. We are forming a TMO on Highway 36, and we look to get transit along that route, and that's been identified by the MPO as a need. We're all working on a multimodal trail between Fort Collins and Greeley that's almost, in place. So there's a lot of regional work that's being done. I think that there'll be more the premium transit study that was done by the MPO identified 3 different corridors between our community, between Weldon and Larimer that we could work on. And so I just, I guess just wanted folks to know that work is still being done, and we're still pursuing funding in some of those spaces. And it would be nice to have a dedicated funding stream, but while we're waiting on some solutions around that, we are still continuing to do work. And that, our staff is very highly involved in some of this work at the MPO level. And we appreciate, when one door closes, a window opens sometimes, and that's kind of how it is at the MPO. We're able to be able to at least address some of these issues, not all of the issues that we have between our communities. But there is funding out there, and we'll continue to seek that funding. And we almost got a raise grant, so so we can apply again. But anyway, just wanted to make sure that folks knew about that work.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I have a comment and a question, and then if the county manager wishes to add anything before we move on to the next goal. But my comment on the regional transportation, I certainly appreciate what the commissioner shared about, the progress we're making in the grants and everything else. I mean, there's a lot of good work that's going on. I'd like us to make sure we don't lose sight, and maybe this goes into the next strategic plan, specific things that we've talked about between, for example, options for, transportation choices for people from Wellington to Fort Collins, LaPorte to Fort Collins, and perhaps even, places like Red Feather Lakes or Glacier View. So I'd like us to think about how we might put that into our next 5-year strategic plan and what the county's role might be in that. So wanted to put that out there, if that's okay with folks. And my question regarding Objective 4, Regional Watershed Management Collaboration, et cetera, bullet point number 2, promote water sharing strategies to preserve ag and sustain water supplies. I don't understand why you consider that, or we consider that, complete and operational. Can you clarify what you mean by that? Because seems to me the idea is out there, but I don't know if anything's actually been done about it.
When I inherited this objective, it was primarily focused on open space lands. in developing methods that we could get water sources. What is that, Thompson Farm was one of the examples that was given to me. And so from that lens is where I was looking at it as complete. You're absolutely right, Commissioner, in terms of the entire unincorporated area. It's part of the reason we're doing the Water Master Plan and working with the Northern Colorado Water Alliance, because I'm sure there are other tools that are out there for us to look at this area. But my lens was pretty narrow in terms of Department of Natural Resources and open space lands.
Thank you for clarifying that, Lori. That's very helpful. And I'm sure we're probably all on the same page that the work that we're doing on the Water Master Plan will likely inform what should go into the, the next 5-year strategic plan. Because I think there's a lot more work that needs to be done around figuring out municipal ag water sharing agreements and all of that.
I agree, and I think that even what we're seeing early into this water planning effort is other counties are looking at, even in securing your open lands, looking at the priority, the prime agricultural land and the prime water rights, and identifying properties that can meet those needs as well. And so I do think that there's a lot of work that'll unfold in the next 5 years on this one.
Lorinda, is there anything else you'd like to ask or comment on before we move on?
Yeah, I think I'll add, if you
Please.
think about the first strategic plan, the Office of Emergency Management was established, but it continues to grow and develop, and it doesn't need to be included in a strategic plan to continue to do that. And I think that's how we've approached some of these operational issues. We know they're ongoing. They're not anything the county's going to stop doing, but we've developed a process, a system. We've funded a plan to be developed. You all have identified a philosophy that didn't exist, frankly, before the strategic plan was adopted. And so that's why you'll see some of these things look operational, but not technically complete, because I'm not sure we'll ever complete that work.
Commissioner, I'm the chair, but may I make a comment? And actually, something for food for thought, what you just said, Lorinda. When I see closed with the little door hanger, it seems like it's permanent. And I wonder, I'm not sure, maybe it's just semantics, whether or not, for the public's sake, for our sake, for everyone's sake, maybe there's a better reference, like paused. Because I don't think any of this stuff is ever done. And it may be that in 5 years we come back and maybe there is a role for wastewater. So something to think about, Lori and colleagues, whether we should change the word closed to perhaps paused or something else that indicates it ain't, as Yogi Berra used to say, it ain't over till it's over, right? That's all I offer. Thank you for listening. Anything else, colleagues? Otherwise, I believe we can go on to goal number 2, which of course is the best goal and my favorite one. Commissioner Stevens, right? Sorry. Josh, shall we move on, sir?
Sure. So to report on goal number 2 is our Human and Economic Health Director, Laura Walker.
Thank you, Josh. And thank you, Commissioner Kafalis. As the executive sponsor for this particular goal area, I appreciate your support of everything we've been doing for the last 5 years. So just to give some updates on our objectives, the first objective was to establish the County Wellbeing and Resiliency Dashboard, which has happened. And so the operationalization, if that's a word, will become more official as we move into 2024. And so I'll be bringing the objective team and our executive sponsor and some folks from the health department, public health, who have been instrumental in taking this to a place where it's going to be maintained and kept fresh and kept accurate for the public and for decision makers here in the county to inform program direction, we hope, and really meeting the needs of our community the best way that we can. And that meeting is on December 7th. And so at that point, then we will be discussing how the maintenance will work in the Health Department, how they will be making sure to maintain the connections to data sources that they don't own or don't have their own access to. Case in point being, for example, our behavioral health services, which had its own dashboard for a while, and we've really tried to take existing dashboards or ideas for new dashboards and see if there's a place for them within the 8 categories that we've designed for this well-being and resiliency dashboard, because we're hoping to reduce confusion, have kind of a one-stop shop, again, for both internal decision makers and program directors, but also for the general public and policymakers to hopefully get all the same information, have common language to talk about issues that are affecting the community, and create plans to move us forward, have everybody have a better experience in our community. Are there any questions about objective number 1?
Thank you, Laura. Commissioner, so there are no questions. I just would like to, I mentioned this with Corey, but I will be presenting to a graduate social work policy class on December 1, and I thought as part of my presentation, I wanted to present the community health, well-being, and resiliency dashboard. And Corey said she'd help me with that, but maybe you could make sure between you and her that I have the proper link and how we might present that.
Absolutely. And if you would like a staff person, either myself or somebody from health,
Got it covered.
to come with you, we could certainly do that as well, just to be absolutely sure that the technology is behaving
the
that day.
technology.
So, but yes, I will put it,
Talk about
I'll
it.
make a note that presentation is imminent.
December 1
And
on a Friday.
we'll make sure that you have the support you need.
Great. Thank you. Let's continue, please.
Okay. So the second objective is around improving the employment of persons with disabilities, both the quality of the work that is available for folks who face those challenges, but also just increasing the volume and the number of opportunities that are available for people in our community that have those kinds of issues. And so a lot of different things have happened. One of the key operational pieces that has occurred is the movement of Nicole Berg in our Human Resources Department to a full-time position as the inclusion administrator for the county. When she started in this objective, she was a co-lead for the objective team, but she was trying to balance her expertise and her deep interest and passion for this work of really supporting people who have different challenges to be able to be functional and have productive and really helpful work experiences as part of their lives. She was also trying to be a generalist for a number of internal county departments. And so we're very grateful that there was the ability to shift her responsibilities fully to this inclusion administrator. She's created that Inclusion Council within the county staff structure, which really takes a look at our internal ways of dealing with folks who have different abilities who come to us for employment, but also that we're being as inclusive as possible for everyone in the county, regardless of their level of capability, and making this a better place to work. The other piece that was presented to the board in a work session in August was the ability that we have now with some funding from our state partners with some local match, but a good proportion of the salary for a full-time person in our Economic and Workforce Development Department to focus on those residents in the county who come to that service and have some challenges and have some disabilities and need some kind of accommodation. Blake Dowling presented. She is our hire for that position. And she's just getting started in building those partnerships with other nonprofits in our community who already assist folks who are in this situation, but also networking with employers using the economic development network that already exists in that department as well. And I'm looking very forward to, in the next 8 to 12 months, bringing her back to the board to start talking about some of the successes that I'm quite sure she's going to be having. But when she came to the board in August, she'd only been with us for about 30 days. So it was early in that program development, but we're really looking forward to her being able to have a full-time focus towards that.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, colleagues? We'll just keep moving right along.
Wonderful. So I know the closed sign is not very popular. After our last, review of a goal, but
Yeah, it's not a matter of popularity. I'm just offering another lens by which we might consider changing that.
I understand completely, and if you look at the materials, the more robust handout that I provided to the board, the way that I've described this is really that the ownership of the intent of this original objective has moved to another entity within our community. So and the county is still very much a part of that community network that is looking at childcare, early education, and making sure that we're doing everything we can to support families, have kids be ready for kindergarten, have families be able to get to work, and really just have that stability for the families in our community that need it. And so at this point, the main role that the county has coming out of this objective is we are in negotiations with the Early Childhood Council of Larimer County. They were successful in their bid. We put an RFP out for a partner agency to develop a memorandum of understanding to begin with, to hopefully still pursue a sales tax initiative in 2024. This was the same kind of initiative that the Early Childhood Council had taken upon themselves and with another advocacy group to make an attempt in 2022 that was not successful. Timing did not work out well with that one, and so we're looking at 2024 to revamp that initiative and hopefully have a successful sales tax initiative, which could really make a difference in a lot of the gaps that we see in this system.
In fact, as you all know, there's a collaborative application for a grant to attend a Harvard program on how communities deal with childhood issues with nonprofits and local governments. And so that, I think, demonstrates the partnership that continues as we work through this IGA. It's complicated. It's not a one or two paragraph kind of a thing. Understanding how the relationship would work so that it's beneficial to the community and doesn't harm either agency is foremost in everyone's mind. So this is very much ongoing, but the county's lead role has now shifted to the Early Childhood Council.
Thank you for reminding us of that, Lorinda. Commissioner, is there anything you wish to add at this point regarding the child care objective, and which is not closed, but the shift in or shared responsibility, and that also causes me to think maybe paused isn't even the right word, but I'm not sure. But let you folks figure that out. Commissioner, please.
Yeah, just that I'm glad it's not really closed. I mean, it's, because we're still working on our end, certainly with our partners at Early Childhood. So, I'm excited about this possibility. I think it's something that's really needed in the community for a variety of different reasons. So there's the economic workforce reason. There's the reason of families, struggling with rising costs. And then, of course, there's the idea that high-quality childcare is beneficial to the young people, to families, to all of us, honestly. And so I think making this a priority in our community will be great. And so looking forward to those continued conversations and the work that we do with early childhood to try to make that happen.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Commissioner. Let's continue.
Okay, wonderful. So the final objective in this goal area is number 4, housing affordability. And we are thrilled to say that at this point, the proposed budget for 2024, which I know will not be finalized and adopted until mid-December, does include funding to advance a couple of the objectives that had been brought to the board in several work sessions as the strategy for having an impact on affordable housing from the county lens had been brought forward as the 5 years worth of work for this objective team. And so starting with some eviction prevention focused programming, as well as some landlord engagement, which we know is critical to not only keep the affordable housing rental stock that is available in the county, but also to invite more property owners to consider taking on things like the availability of housing vouchers and use their rental units as available properties for those that are looking for housing, have a voucher in hand, but have trouble finding something. So those are a couple of the programs that are included in the proposed budget. And again, we're very grateful that we've been able to show the value to the board. We know that these programs, based upon expert advice based on the experience of other entities in our region, other governmental entities who have done some of this programming, we do know that it will have a positive impact, and we're really looking forward to getting started.
Thank you, Laura. Colleagues, questions or comments? Yes, please.
Just that, the community is constantly asking us to do work in this space, and so I wouldn't be surprised if some version of this comes back in our new strategic plan, just because it's such a high priority, honestly. Everywhere I go, everyone I talk to, practically every email I get is asking the county to stay engaged in this space. So I'm glad we have, some strategies that are funded in the budget. We wish there could be more. But I think that, we'll continue to look at possibilities at the state level and, whether it's accessing the Prop 123 dollars or, advocating for some additional strategies at the state level. But my guess is that some form of this stays on an upcoming strategic plan, even though we have a check mark next to it. I just think, the community is not, we've done a lot of work, and I think there's work that needs to be done, and I think keeping it on a strategic plan gives the signal to the community that we're still really committed to do this work, so, thank you.
And I think, if I could add, the main goal here was around determining the county's lane and creating a plan, doing a study, figuring out where the county might fit into this. So I think you're right. That piece is complete. We've done that work. Aaliyah has done a tremendous job along with the original objective team. Now what do we do with it? I think is exactly what might make it into the next strategic plan, because this is not a thing that's going away.
Thank you both. I agree with the comments that have been expressed. This is one that ain't over till it's over. Is there anything else you wish to present, Laura Walker?
No, just that I really appreciate the board's support throughout. I've now been a goal steward for 10 years. And at every turn, some of the objectives in the first 5-year iteration of this plan ended up being lessons learned, that we had lofty objectives that maybe weren't the right thing for the county to be doing or weren't the right time. But we had a lot of learning out of that. And I would say out of this 5-year cycle, there have been some very tangible things that have been very gratifying. And I also want to give credit to Heather O'Hare, because she was the goal steward for the first couple of years in this 5-year cycle before I took over. So we're just grateful for the support, and it's exciting work to be able to come out of our mandated programs, which are many in my service area, and be able to do things that are more enriching to the community that we know really serve a need. So thanks.
Yes, thank you for your leadership as well in this space, in a variety of spaces.
Thanks.
I believe we can move on. Josh.
So goal 3 was centered on Operation Evolution. The goal steward for that is Bridget Paris, who's the Human Resources Director. She's not here today because, as I mentioned earlier, this goal has pretty much been completed. The things you see on here, the 4 objectives, a facilities master plan and funding high priority facilities, identifying workforce characteristics and taking those into account during the hiring and review processes, service adaptation and creation of a county data policy and strategy are all operational and complete. And so Bridget gave a report on that at the last work session on this. So with that, and I'm sorry, there's one more, Objective 4, related to balancing county environmental policy, creating an environmental policy that balances natural resources and economic needs. That is also complete and operational.
Thank you, Josh. Sure. Colleagues, questions or comments? I'll just offer that I believe Commissioner Stevens was the executive sponsor of this one, and it looks like she and her team have sort of knocked it out of the park.
Well done.
Well done.
I would like to thank the team more than me, yes, we all provide guidance. It could not have been done without dozens of people working on this. But I'm happy to say that a lot of this was quite easily, I feel like, operationalized within the departments, so.
And I would just add that, the objectives within this goal 3 perhaps could be described as not like the big, the things that are out there in the community, and yet the stuff that was in this particular goal, how we provide services, is really, really important, adapting and changing. And a slight curiosity I have is, did we actually change the name of this goal to, where does Operation Evolution come from? That's a creative a renaming of this goal.
I confess, I don't know if it was changed. I believe it was the final name of the goal, though. Just like you mentioned, evolving how we provide operations, especially on a support services level, to enable those public-facing services to be performed better. So I don't know if there was a different original name or not.
Bridget's pretty efficient, so it wouldn't surprise me if she didn't just come up with a 2-word description of what departments and offices were doing to improve and be ready for services 20 years from now.
That's just another example of our efficiency. As we can be as succinct as possible, that is a good thing. Thank you, Josh. I believe we have at least one more slide, an important slide.
Sure. So the final slide is the next steps upcoming this winter. We will plan for a wrap-up and create a final progress and lessons learned reports that will really show and document all the work and the things that have come out of this plan, all the lessons learned. We got into some of those, if you remember, last quarter on this plan, and so we'll carry those forward into the next version of the plan. So look for those documents as we get into the new year. We will continue to determine those objectives and goals that may carry over into the next version of the strategic plan. We talked about a few again today, and so really the work is kind of transitioning now into the next version of the strategic plan for 2024 through 2028. We are going to plan an appreciation event for those who participated on objective teams. That will be held presumably in probably January or February. So we really want to recognize all the hard work that they put in on this. As Laura mentioned, this is really above and beyond their normal job duties, and so they took a lot of time and added a lot of workload to get these things done, and so we're very appreciative of that. And I think I mentioned incorporating the lessons learned into our next version. So I think in the next version of the plan, you'll see a lot more administrative support, updating of things, especially by our office now that we're kind of going to be administering the next plan. So with that, that's the conclusion of the presentation.
Excellent and well done, Josh. I think it would be appropriate for us to offer some closing comments on this process. Commissioner Stevens, would you like to share some thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone involved with this process. We kind of came in midway through this plan, so we were, in a way, trying to make another board's plan come into fruition. So, but I will say that these are goals that, we also embraced too. And so I just want to thank all the people involved, all the stewards, all the people who made everything happen in this plan. And really, I think it's, when we say that there were some things that just weren't possible or we didn't finish or we couldn't do, I think that I'm glad we kind of look at this in a realistic way, because there's some things that just, that aren't feasible, and how do we pivot and do something else that's valuable for the community. So I'm just really grateful for the experience, and it's nice to have that under our belt as we move into a new strategic planning process, because I feel like we've all learned a lot from this process, and what feels doable and achievable, and how to set goals that are the SMART goals. But just want to mostly express my gratitude, and I'm really glad that we have the opportunity to do that at Appreciation event, because there again, while I sort of glibly washed my hands of the whole thing, I know that there were, like I said, dozens and dozens of people, staff members that helped make this happen, and I really want to express my gratitude to them personally. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kristen. I will provide my 2 cents for what they're worth. And that is, one point I wanted to make is that I'm glad we now have an Office of Performance, Budget, and Strategy, because I think that will provide some really excellent support and facilitation and guidance of how we move forward with this process. So that's one point I wanted to make. And Josh and his team, I think that's great and excellent. The second point I wanted to make is that similar to what Kristen said, a lot of gratitude. Thank you for all the hard work. The executive sponsors, the objective team leaders, the community partners, the team members, and how that's kind of evolved over time. And I look forward to the appreciation event that we'll have sometime early next year. That'll be fun. I think, I don't know if other counties do this, but I don't know if this is another one of those unique things of Larimer County where the commissioners come up with a 5-year strategic plan that's based on community needs and priorities. I think that's something that deserves a shout out, that if we're not unique, I think it's a very smart way of doing things. It's very creative, and it allows us to look at things in the short term and certainly beyond. So that was a second point I wanted to make. And then finally, so the community knows, the public knows, there will be other opportunities to weigh in on what this final document, which it will be, is a living document, the other ways to weigh in ongoing community engagement. But in particular, we're hoping to send out our community survey that will be mailed out to folks. That will be statistically valid as far as the the mailed out survey, and then it'll be available on the website. And that's another way that we can get input and see if how that validates or aligns with what we're thinking. And certainly issues like childcare, housing, infrastructure are questions that are being asked on there. So I think that's another way that folks can participate and weigh in and help inform our thinking and decisions on this. Thank you. Lorinda, I know you'll have some really outstanding wisdom.
Now the pressure's on. I always think we did this in 45 minutes, and this is 5 years' worth of work that we're reporting on. And so teams have assembled, their partners have changed, their goals may have tweaked a little bit, and still, when you shine a light on something, things happen. In 5 years, these things didn't exist before. They weren't priorities of the county. We have some funding we have available to further these kind of initiatives because they are priorities for you all. And so I think as we approach the next strategic plan, as we celebrate this one and think about what comes next, it always feels so big at the beginning. And if we can just create little bite-sized pieces to be able to make progress on, I think that we celebrate those along the way. And I know that Josh has a plan for that, to communicate those successes and to celebrate and appreciate the team members, maybe more formally than we've done in the past. But we do hope to really say thank you in a very sincere way at this event where we can bring everyone together who played any part in this and say thank you.
Thank you, Lorinda, and allow me, just prompted me to think of something that may be good to leave us all with, and that is, it's often been said that a budget could be considered a, quote, moral document that if it's done well with input, it's a reflection of the values and priorities of our community and the needs. And I think the same principle applies to our 5-year strategic plan. And this next one will be our third iteration. I think you alluded to this, Lorinda, but this goes back to 2013, the first 5-year strategic plan. It solidified our emergency management office. It allowed us to have success the second time around regarding the need for behavioral health services. So this is our third iteration, and I think overall there have been many benefits and returns on investment. So I believe I've said enough. And you all want to say anything or before we sign off on this deal? Lori, go for it.
I was going to echo the county manager's comments in some ways. I had listed 3 things if I got a chance to speak. And the first one was that it is a living plan, right? And when I think back to when I came on, it might have been maybe 6 months after the plan had been developed. And the objectives changed over time, and the board supported us financially, and we returned money back when things didn't look like they were going to work the way that we originally thought. And so objectives can be modified as the community changes over time. And that was one of the things that I think is really important. Even when Laura took on her goal, she modified some of those objectives. I'm hoping, which is my second point, that we may get them closer to begin with next time, because we have a new office of performance budgeting and support, and in that office, we have a data person now. And one of the hardest challenges we had in creating those objectives is getting the right data to make them SMART goals. But now we're going to have somebody who supports all the objective teams in being able to look at the data that's available, and hopefully then be better able to measure those and set more realistic goals to begin with, or objectives. And lastly, if Bridget were here, I would give her a round of applause for her team developing the connection to reward people who are working on this with the Nectar Bucks. Because I do think that that is a great way to recognize the additional work that objective leaders are doing or team members are doing, and generate some appreciation for folks and flexibility in how people want to use those Nectar Bucks. It's not like everybody gets a pin or everybody gets a cup. You can specialize that to what you're interested in having. So thank you, Commissioner. Those were the 3 things I had written down.
Well, thank you for sharing those thoughts. I think it's time to adjourn, and good discussion, good comments, good questions. It is 2:17 p.m. by my watch. We are adjourned.